Alright, 3 hours in today, and we've got the shear line all fared down, just flat for now, just like I talked about. I haven't started beveling it for the frames yet, but it's all at least to the level of the shear, the ply, the hull ply. So, it's looking awesome. Making fantastic progress. Plugging away little by little. Alright, so today I've got my forward stop and winch mount set up, and this is just temporary right now. Basically, I've got these U-bolts clamping it on to the front of the trailer, and again, that's just totally temporary, and the reason it's temporary is because eventually I'll be building a stainless cutwater to go on here, so I'll need this out of my way. And I don't want to have to weld it down and then cut tacks loose or whatever to remove it. So right now it's temporarily clamped. That's pretty much the position that it's going to end up in. But this at least mounts it on there. I get an idea how it fit to the boat. I did have to modify this angle so that I was contacting the top and the bottom of this rubber stop. So it's contacting the bow of the boat squarely at the correct angle. And after my cutwater is built and on and finished product done, looks pretty, then I'll slide this back up, clamp it in place, tack it, remove the clamps, and fully weld it out. So that's what I did today. I now have my roller here and a chunk of angle iron, and I'm getting ready to modify the brackets so that you can see this white line I've drawn on the trailer right here. That is directly under frame 5.5. So that's where we are. Yeah, I got my welder strung out again and a mess all over the floor. But what I did today is I got my roller put in, and I dropped a plumb bob off of frame 5.5 to the floor, drew a line across. You might be able to see the faint lines. Anyhow, drew a line across, did the same on the other side, and I transferred that line up to the boat trailer for where the center of frame 5.5 is. So I put this roller, and as you can see, it's just not quite touching the bottom. It's close, but not quite touching. And the point of that is just to aid in loading. When the trailer's at a real steep angle, the center of the boat can roll up that. And once it's on the trailer, it won't touch it. It's not resting on it. So, got that done today. Painted a couple of spots of the trailer. Miscellaneous places that didn't quite get enough paint. You can see there's dust on everything right now. I also built little 1/2-inch spacer blocks. It might be hard to tell here, to put on top of these. After I got the zip positioned on the trailer where I wanted and lifted the bow until it met up cleanly on my bunks, like I wanted in the back here, then there was a little bit of a gap up here. So I raised those up, measured that gap. It turned out to be a 1/2 inch, and I just added little spacer blocks to it. So now the bunks fit the bottom of the contour of the boat much, much, much better. And I think shy of wiring and a little touch-up paint, the trailer should be completely done now. I'll go back here. And here's a look at how the bunks land now at the transom. They look real nice, real clean. So we're making great progress. Coming right along. So here's a look at what we were doing today. Started fairing this shear, beveling it to match the frames. And here's a pretty good look. You can see this step right here. So this frame will have to be beveled. This would be the high spot back here, and it'll have to be beveled down to this side all the way across to match this step right here. It's actually more than that. I've taken some of this down through the sanding process, but so I'll have to bevel this frame. And just like when the boat was upside down, this frame met up perfect. So I don't have to bevel it at all. This is frame 2, or the dash of the driver cockpit. And then back here at this frame, this corner meets up, but this corner doesn't. So I'll have to take the back side of this down, angled to match or I guess angled from this height down to this height, which is about an 1/8 inch difference here, all the way across the frame. But that's what I worked on. You can see some of the bevel here. And I still need to do a little refining right in this area, probably bring this down a hair bit more. But you can see how it now wraps around to match into the transom. So, just a little fairing. Working on the starboard side today. I'll work on the port side, I think, tomorrow. And then I'll get these frames faired, 5.5. And frame 2, get those faired. And then I just have a little bit more cleanup up in the inside of the boat. And should be ready for epoxy encapsulation inside after that. So we're making great progress. So today we're working on the port side, working on fairing this, beveling it to match the frames. And you can see where I've taken my file and I filed this down until it met up cleanly with the frame. So this is my projected line. And you can see how it looks funny up here. Well, that's because this frame, as you can see, is sticking up. So this is where it needs to be faired off. And I got that height just by looking at how much was sticking up right here. So this frame will get beveled on an angle like that all the way across this thickness, which is roughly an 1/8 inch. Again, frame 4, you can see where I filed it through here. Frame 4 is dead even. There's no bevel to it, so it stays the same all the way across. And frame 2 is the opposite direction. You can see how we've cut into here, but not here. This is how much is sticking up, also an 1/8 inch. So I drew this line. This frame will get beveled this direction, opposite of frame 5.5, which gets beveled that direction. So the whole curve of the boat kind of goes up and then down towards the front. And that's reflected in these lines of how I have to fair these frames to make everything line up. So from this point forward, I took a measurement at the lowest point, and at this lowest point, and at this lowest point, and they all turned out to be roughly 3/16 of an inch. So if 3 frames in a row are 3/16 of an inch, you can pretty well assume that this amount that I have to take down or shape to match the frames back to this corner, just like we did before. I marked this in dark, so this is our existing corner because it lines up with the frame. So from this point, it has to be beveled down 3/16 of an inch. And that's uniform from frame 2 through frame 4 through frame 5.5. And I can assume then that it will carry on all the way around to the tip of the bow. And you can see that bevel right here on this side. So this side will be beveled the same. Back to our shear line. So this is our 0 point, and it gets beveled down to, you can see the line right here. Barely see the line, 3/16 of an inch. So that's what I did on the other side, and after filing all of these slots in here, to confirm that that was accurate, the measurement was identical left and right. So that's right. Now this is where it gets tricky. We filed our mark in here, 3/16, just the same. But in this last 4-foot stretch of the boat, down to this point, we go clear to 9/16. Hopefully you can see that. Pretty big difference from 3/16. And if you look over here, hopefully you can see it, I have mountains and mountains of math I've been doing. Lots of addition, subtraction, of fractions, clear down to the 64th. I'm not going past that. There's no need. But anyhow, so here's my mountains of calculations, and this is just for this 4-foot stretch of the boat. But what that does is it gives me a mark here that'll progressively drop down to here, to eventually line up dead even with the back of the transom. And so it's a little bit of work. It's a lot of bit of math. But this was the most accurate way I could find to do it. So from the transom to frame 2, it's confusing. From frame 2 forward, it's basically 3/16 all the way out. So making good progress. Well, it is August 1st, 2015. For the month of July 2015, we put in a total of 17 hours. We went up a whopping $25.79. Basically, for the month of July, we did some deck fairing and some trailer work. So I added about an extra 4.5 hours onto the trailer and some deck fairing. So I had to pick up a new board, as you can see, because I was running out of room. So we'll keep this a running tally of my monthly totals. Up here will be totals for each section of the boat, just like I had on the other board, just a little more room. And so that brings us up to a total of 248.5 hours into building the Zip. Not too shabby. And our whopping $25 increase, that brings us up to $2,633.13 invested. And not a whole lot of money this month, but definitely decent hours. So let's take a look at where we're at. Alright, so this is where we're at. And as you can see, I have started this beveling. I would say it's closer to dang near finished. We're probably 90% of the way done. But you can see now how this shear line is beveled. And it's like that from the tip all the way back. We'll see, hopefully you can see that bevel. And we'll go over to the other side. And here's a look at it up at the tip of the bow. You can see we're beveled here and beveled here. And they still have some finish work. But it is pretty dang close. And here you can see the bevel of that shear all the way down. And it looks pretty dang good. The lines look pretty good. One last thing I'm going to have to do, well, a few last things on this shear anyhow, is I'm going to take a piece of cardboard and lay it on the outside of the boat and trace this to the cardboard, this bevel for this outside, and I'll cut out that bevel and then I'll stick it on the inside here of the shear, and on the inside of the shear then I'll draw that bevel in here. So basically I'll match it up flush here and flush here, then I'll draw on the back side that bevel so it matches this side. Basically what happens is the angle right here, hopefully you can see it. So you can see here I still haven't faired my frames back yet, but this angle is perfect, just dead on. So this angle is right. And we come back here to the transom. This angle is right, dead on. But what happens is, as we go down this shear, this angle gets steeper. And it shouldn't. So I'm going to copy this curve to the inside of the boat, which will make this bevel, instead of progressive, it'll actually be identical all the way down like it should be. So I got to do that to both sides, which isn't a big deal. I kind of anticipated that. When the boat was upside down, I had to do the exact same thing on the shear on the inside and bottom to accommodate this curve back here. So I kind of anticipated having to modify this a little bit. And again, it's not changing the plans. I'm just forming the top side of this shear to be dead on with the frame and transom. And I had a feeling I would have to do that some, which is no biggie. So we're making great progress. The boat is, as you can see, I have all kinds of plane shavings inside the boat and all over the ground, and giant mess. You can see everything is just covered in dust. The boat's the same way, although I'm not going to wipe the paint. But we're making great progress. So throughout the course of August, we'll get these faired so the angle's correct in the middle. We'll get the frames beveled and faired so they're correct. Again, this is frame 4. Frame 4 is dead on. It requires no beveling. I don't have to bevel it either way. It's dead on. And then frame 5.5 gets beveled forward. And you can probably see, you can see where we're dead on right here. And this is that same line. If I continue it, I'll draw that all the way across. And it'll get beveled from this line back to this corner. We're making great progress. Everything is covered in dust. Oh, look at the dust. It's everywhere. So, things are coming right along, looking great. Thanks for watching. Please rate and comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and we will see you on the next episode of Building the Zip.